Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I get to ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. My guest this week is a truck captain with over 20 years in the fire service, hailing from the Sunshine State of Florida. Since 2006, he's served as a rescue team manager for FEMA's USAR Task Force 2 out of Miami, where he has taken part in multiple domestic and international USAR deployments. He has become a leading voice on the subject of RIT Operation as the founder and lead instructor for Mayday Mindset. He travels nationally and internationally as a guest instructor and speaker at various fire conferences. It's my great pleasure to welcome my guest this week, Captain Rob Ramirez. Welcome, Rob. Thank you for joining me.
Dude, thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to pick your brain, talk RIT today. But first, we can't get to the meat and potatoes of the episode without at first doing our Wheel of Stupid Questions, which is just a constant reminder that asking questions is good. Even if they're stupid, if you point them at the right people, you can get some pretty smart answers. So we'll hop into that, see what we get today.
God. Okay, we're going to spin the wheel. It is a real wheel, and we're going to see what we get today. Okay. Captain Rob Ramirez, would you rather fight a man-sized chicken or 20 chicken-sized men? Dude, that is a great question because I've actually thought about this. Not chicken, but like little people.
Okay. Wait, midgets?
I just feel... Yeah, is that proper? Can we say midgets? Yeah.
I
but
can.
really, really tiny chicken-sized ones.
Okay, perfect.
A man-sized chicken is a freaking T-Rex. That's a dinosaur.
That's scary.
I'm going to fight little people as much as I can and hope that they don't outsmart me.
Yeah, see, that's the problem that goes underserved in this conundrum is that if you have, small people, they still have human intellect. They can, coordinate, and you have 20 coordinated attackers. That's more difficult but the alternative being basically a dinosaur.
Exactly.
I don't like my chances. Right?
No, they're building weapons. These little people, they're trapping you and tripping you.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is hopefully they don't have enough time to be able to really forge weapons the way that they could.
No.
Over time, it would become. Yeah. Over time, it would really become a lot more problematic, I think. like a Gulliver's Travels kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the real deal of what we're here to talk about. I appreciate you having a formed opinion about a stupid question. So let's go back to the very beginning. Why the fire service? What's the origin story?
Very organic process. I was playing sports in high school, like a lot of guys do, and in the fire service. So I was playing baseball. I was playing 2 years of football, and I was really not I wasn't coordinated as far as what I was going to do after high school. And somewhere around 10th grade, I met a buddy of mine whose dad was a fireman down at Miami-Dade County Fire Department down here in South Florida. And one day we went by the firehouse. We had this junior firefighter cadet program that he was a part of. My buddy was. And I spent one summer in it. That summer, I fell in love with it. The second I walked into the firehouse, it was like being in a football locker room or in a baseball dugout. It was that vibe of team first. One man is no man. And I absolutely, it drew to my instinct of being around, high speed dudes performing at a high level and wanting to be a starter on that team.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any family history in the fire service?
I don't, man. I'm a first generation American, believe it or not.
Awesome.
Mom and dad came from Cuba in the 60s. And I was the first one to go to school here, learn English and do all that. So I don't.
Wow. I got one question for you. I've heard it. I haven't had it. What's your take on Cuban coffee? I have never had it, but I've heard it's amazing.
Cuban coffee is the reason why crystal meth never took off in South Florida. All right. Because it's cheaper and easy and available and legal. So it's great.
I've never had it. All the times I've been in South Florida, I've heard amazing things, but I've never been able to grab it.
Well, I'm going to send you a care package. When we get off the air, I'm going to get your information and we'll send you a package up north.
Oh, okay. I'm excited. So do you remember, I always ask my guests this because I think it's such an interesting question. Do you remember your first fire? First time you actually went inside a fire?
So yeah, inside a fire, it was a simple house fire. And, we say simple, but, hindsight's 2020. The day of, it could have been like the raging inferno for me because everything was happening so fast and I had no idea where I was going. But I'm looking back now 23 years later, and it was a simple job, a single room and contents, and everything was moving faster than I was in my mind. And I was just trying to stay in position and not mess it up for the team. I wasn't given any big task. I think I may have stretched the line and helped throw some hot shit out the window in a bedroom that was on fire. But before that, as a cadet, I had rode with the fire department 2 calls and 2 fires, and actually put out a car fire one time. And I thought that was the greatest thing on earth as an 11th or 12th grader. And yeah, man, it was a hook, line, and sinker from day one.
Yeah, I felt very similar. I felt very similar when I got to the fire service. That was like there was a click that I felt that I'm in the right place now, and I feel that way still a decade later. So as you went through your progression in the fire service, eventually you got pretty heavily into instructing. Talked about how that happened.
So instructing was something I kind of just fell into as well, right? I was very fortunate. I got to a firehouse where guys were already doing it. I ended up on a shift at a firehouse where my captain at the time was one of the elite instructors at the local fire academy. And then I had a bunch of other guys that were teaching paramedic school. And down here in South Florida, we're all firefighter paramedics. Not all, but the large majority is a thing down here, the home of paramedicine. So in order to get hired, you need to have both tickets. And so a lot of the local schools and colleges were teaching these programs. You can't teach fire school until you're 6 or 7 years on and go through the state programs to certify you as an instructor. So around year 2, year 3, I started teaching paramedicine. And it really helped me get my sea legs and get my feet under me as far as how to communicate in public, how to talk to people, how to deliver subject matters that are not really that interesting and make them interesting. How to create, how do you make pharmacology and pH balances, sexy to a group of 18-year-olds? You really can. So if you're able to, you're going to be successful in any world. And that transitioned into fire teaching somewhere around 2009 to 2010. And from there, I fell in love with that and took off.
So as you kind of, carved out your niche in that instructing, what was it about RIT that drew you more so than other subject matters?
So that took a while. Like I told you, 2009, 2010, I started teaching at the local fire academy. I did that for about, 5, 6, 7 years. And I think the common theme is with all the guys that are doing this all over the place is that we kind of fell out of love with the subject matter and the way that it was being delivered at the local fire academy. You start finding a bunch of untruth. You start finding things that do not work on the fireground, and you're forced to teach this to these kids, and they're forced to regurgitate it in order to get out of the fire academy and get their ticket to be a fire 1 or fire 2. And at one point, I just started feeling hypocritical, where I'm force feeding these guys and girls information that I know at this point in my career does not work or apply to the real fireground. That kind of turned me off into the fire academy, and I started helping out in the conference circuit. Again, very organically. One class led to another. The right person saw me and gave me a shot to do my own class. And, Lord behold, man, here we are. That was 2015. So we're almost 10 years into this thing. And it's kind of grown legs and taking us all across the world. It's been really cool.
So you don't think that, or there isn't a particular thing that you can tie back your interest in, RIT or, Mayday prevention or, solving it, or however you would want to say it? Or is there a thing you can tie it to?
Yes. Sorry, Jake. Let me answer your question this time.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
No, dude, thanks for doing that. That was a pro move. Nice job. So way to bring me back to it. So that'll happen too. I'll start going left and right. So
that's okay. We got nothing but time.
Appreciate you. Yeah. So RIT. So along the way, I was teaching everything. I teach engine company, teach truck company. I teach paramedic stuff. I teach tactical paramedicine. I teach SWAT medic. If it was something to teach in the fire service, I would do it locally, right? I was into the teaching component. I enjoyed the process of breaking information down, giving people bite-sized pieces and having them learn it and apply it. It was great. The feedback was awesome. It filled my cup. At one point, I became mature enough to understand that I didn't have to and couldn't be good at everything at a high level. I just do not have the hard drive space to do that, right? And or the experience in every lane of firefighting disciplines. I just didn't have the real world experience. And I felt like this is something that I can really affect positive change in. I met Rick George. I'm sure you've heard of Rick George. Rick George teaches all over the country, tactical resiliency. I met Rick. He's a local guy too, out of Palm Beach County. And he probably 10, 12 years ago, I met him and took one of his seminars. During his seminar, he started talking about things that sounded like music to me. Everything that I was thinking, all the dots I had in my mind about firefighting rescue and self-rescue, he connected those dots for me with his class. And I thought to myself, holy cow, somebody's speaking my language. This is something that I can dive deep into because I love it. So I started studying his information. That led me into books about human behavior under stress. That led me into a deeper dive into anatomy and physiology with my paramedic background. And then I kind of all meshed into what it has become like, you know, I'm a RIT guy. I'm a self-rescue guy. I'm a firefighter, survival guy. And I'm okay with that. I'm really, really comfortable being in that lane. And I'm just going to swim hard because that's the lane I want to stay in.
So before we get into the nitty gritty of talking about Maydays, self-rescue and whatnot, let's just talk about, Maydays by the numbers. Like, when do they happen? What can we be kind of listening for if we're monitoring a fire scene that gives us an indication of things might be going sideways on us?
So every Mayday is going to be unique, right? In the reasons and consequences, or the reasons why it happened, the stuff that behind the issue is going to be different for each one. But there's a lot of constants, right? These variables we cannot control unless we train to avoid and control these variables. It's not like you're going to show up to a fireground having never put a day of training in on RIT or on Mayday prevention, and then all of a sudden identify the variables and predict them, or have a system that's set up to perform a certain way so that you don't fall victim to these variables. What we have to do is insert as many constants as possible in areas where we can and let the shit that is going to figure itself out. And hopefully we're in a good tactical position where it does not affect us or our members when it happens. The times are what they are, from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Those are your hazard times. The numbers are the numbers, and I understand them. I know them very well. I just know that if we're able as a fire service to train our members to identify these variables, identify constants that work based on data, based on the possibility for success, based on historical value and individual experience, you put that all in a big pot, you give it a stir, and the information that comes out of that pot, you can now apply into a system, not an SOG. It's always systems over SOGs, right? You need to maintain that preparation that actually can become implementation on the fireground and keep our members safe. If we look at simply the numbers, but do not teach our members to avoid these usual suspects, we're going to keep falling prey to them. And that's how members get hurt over and over and over again. And you hear it. He got caught in a flashover. He got lost and disoriented. He was a catastrophic building failure, unexpected fire behavior. And you're like, was it really unexpected? Was that really? Could anybody have identified it? I don't want to go too far with this question, but guys and girls send me audio now, like this top secret drug deal. Like, hey, Rob, we had a Mayday the other day, dude. I'm going to send you the audio. Don't show it to anybody, and it'll self-destruct immediately when you click end, right? And I listen to these things, Jake, and I promise you, bro, every time I hear them throughout the entire Mayday, if there's 7 minutes of audio before the Mayday, or 2 minutes of audio before the Mayday, every single time, if I get a piece of paper and I start writing down the predictable failures and constants that I'm hearing during transmissions alone, not even being there, the Mayday was absolutely identifiable and predictable. It becomes a probability, not a possibility.
So to combat that, where do you think you start? Is it in the SOP, SOG process? Is it in the training process? It is in a combination of all those things? Is it an individual member or the company level, the chief level? How do we combat it?
You really have to make your training. Training is the foundation, right? We can't build SOGs at work unless we do training. The training that we build for our members has to be realistic, consequential, has to be data-driven, has to be street vetted as far as experiential. If we do not use the information we have available to us, then we're just putting out opinions and theories, right? This is plausible versus possible. This has worked versus this can work. We need to do a better job of the fire service to create training that actually protects our members and allows us to build systems that can uphold SOGs that will work for our members.
So I have a question for you. And as a RIT guy, what do you think about 2 in versus 2 out? Like, is that like a thing that makes sense? The reason I ask this is that if, by the numbers, we can kind of say that you're more than likely to be rescued by a member on the inside than someone coming from the exterior. Are we holding ourselves back from, optimal extinguishment times and rescuability of victims by purposefully holding people back when we know that more than likely a Mayday that happens would be resolved from within?
Absolutely. We have the numbers, we have the data, we understand what the numbers are. You're going to be rescued by somebody in the building when you call your Mayday. That's the highest probability is either going to be yourself or people next to you or the company that you came in with. It's not going to be the RIT team, but it can be if it's a very high performing RIT team and they're ready to go and they have been tracking and doing all the things they're supposed to be doing throughout the event to make sure that they can get to you. Now, the truth is, bro, that the 2 in 2 out is junk, right? And I have to be realistic and absolutely honest. I work in a part of the country where I really don't have to worry about 2 in 2 out because we're very manpower saturated. Whether it's my organization or the neighboring organizations, we can provide fire trucks and bodies to fires. 10 minutes, I can get 50, 60 guys there. So if they dispatch them, right? So 2 in 2 out is not something that I have a lot of experience with real world, but the theory in itself and the members that I've talked to in my travels and in my classes and the conversations and the emails on social media and through my personal, I understand the issue. And if we put people in the building, things will get better. Our best insurance policy is to get as many dudes in bunker gear under the same roof while the building's on fire so that all the dudes can get out from under that roof when the building's put out. If we limit the number of resources and we're stingy with our solution, we're not going to fix the problem and end in a predictable outcome. Try to avoid all that because your numbers are right. Your nail, shiny nail, Jake, shiny nail.
Yeah. So there's a quote that I always lean back on from Andy Fredericks in one of his articles that he talks about. If you, I can't remember the exact thing, but paraphrase it. If you only have 6 people on scene, you're better off putting all 6 of them inside than leaving half of them outside, right? And I think that holds true. I come from a department that also is resource heavy, and so it's very rare that we have that where we have an actual 2 in 2 out situation. But I wonder if there's a difference that's going to come in the future of RIT. Like, do you foresee fireground operations potentially changing based on these numbers? Like, do you think that organizations are still going to prioritize getting, RIT companies in place on the exterior when we can say by the numbers that they're more than likely not going to be needed even if there was a Mayday situation? Or how do we prioritize putting people? Some fire departments are putting their rescue squad companies or their most theoretically skilled members on the exterior of a thing, just hoping that if there's a Mayday, these people will be available, not using these highly skilled members to actually extinguish the fire. What do you think about that?
It just doesn't work. And the answer is that was like a 2-part question. The answer is, dude, I don't see that change happening. Firefighting is a local sport. Firefighting is colloquial. It's like the jargon is different. The communications are different. The way people operate are different. And I can talk till I'm friggin' blue in the face in a class and walk out. And the second I walk out, somebody's going to be like, that's not going to work. We're going to keep doing what we're doing because it's worked for 100 years. And that's human nature, bro. You can put 50 podcast episodes out about RIT and the guy can watch all 50, go right back to work and hold the RIT team outside. That's what his SOGs say. And they're like ostriches in the dirt, man, head in the ground. And they're not listening to the information out there. They're just going back to and defaulting to what they've done for years. And that's going to get people hurt. I don't believe the fire service is ready for that change nationally. I think you do have pockets throughout the country that are dialed and they're doing it the right way. God bless them. But the large majority of the fire service is not. And I wish it would put me out of business. I really wish there was no reason for me to go around and talk, because there really still is, due to the fact that we as a service refuse to change our ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So when you think about the skill sets that make someone, Mayday ready, what are the tangible skill sets that these people have that make them more prepared than another person?
Cool. So the skill sets. I'm going to go right back real quick to you mentioned rescue skilled people outside and holding units outside with special skill sets in case a Mayday happens. I am also not a fan of that, right? Because I strongly also believe that RIT is not special. Every member on the fireground should be able to perform a rescue of one of their own or themselves. That should be firefighting 101, firefighter rescue 101. Putting special skilled people, I don't care if you showed up there on an engine, on a rescue, on a truck company, on an ambulance, and you're putting on bunker gear, you're going into that building, you need to be able to rescue one of your own. Rescuing a down firefighter or self-rescuing yourself is not a special skill. It is firefighter 101, and it should be across the country. I really hate when I hear a lot of people tell me this everywhere we go. We have it in our county as well, where we have pre-designated RIT trucks. And thankfully, a lot of times they show up to the fireground and they get reassigned, but they get put on the alarm or the assignment based on a RIT capable truck, where everyone should be RIT capable. As far as the skill set, right back to what I just said, I don't give a shit if you show up there in a Vespa, in a scooter, on an engine, on an ambulance, on a truck, on a freaking spaceship, or one of those drones flying over Jersey. You show up to a fireground and you put on bunker gear, bro. All right. And they assign you to RIT, and you cannot perform traditional truck company skills, forcing, searching, finding, grabbing, dragging, window removals, ladder throws, ladder removals. You do not belong on a RIT team, period. Everything that you are assigned to do on RIT, whether it's gaining access to, dragging ahead or above a hose line without the protection of a hose line, finding a heavy-ass victim, positioning them in zero visibility, communicating, acting as a team, dragging them to an area of refuge or exit, making a window, throwing a ladder. All these things I'm saying sound like freaking truck work.
Yeah.
At no point am I saying establishing a second water supply, collecting a sample, right? We're not doing any of these things, dude. Yeah. We're doing truck work for a firefighter, for Firefighter Smith, not Mrs. Smith. Yeah. So those are the skills that I believe, based on what we do, are very important for you to assign a member to RIT.
So, and this might be an unanswerable, and it might have a lot more to do with, the individual department and their capabilities. But when you think about, the necessity of an external standby RIT crew, which is, like you said, probably not going to change for the vast majority of the fire service. Mm-hmm. How many people are on that crew before it becomes just a sheer waste of personnel? Like, is this a 4-person company? Is this a double company of 8 people or however many that might be? Or at a certain point, are we just saying, well, we're just like throwing away a certain amount of good bodies that could be doing good work for the fire?
NFPA wants 4, right? 3 is good, 2 is not.
And I think by the numbers, how many have they said? Isn't it 12 people that initiate a rescue, something like that? Right? Yeah,
12 to 1, and 1 out of 5 become a victim themselves.
Yeah. So you're like, all right. So we have this, I don't know what you want to call it, security theater. It's like, it's just this fake thing on the outside that says, oh, if something goes wrong, they're going to rescue us. Even though we know that it's going to take 3 or 4 times more people than what are outside to actually do it. And by the numbers, it's not going to be them anyways. It seems like a very strange thing to keep doing when you can say tangibly that it just doesn't work. And I think that you bring up a good point, is that, the fire service is huge. And getting everyone to agree upon things is probably the most difficult of all.
Yep. We have a problem with that, because we have to understand that we can feel a certain way. We have factual supportive data and numbers for the first time in the history of the fire service. We have information available that we can use to make our members better operators and safer operators and keep them operating for many years to come. I'm not saying that fire service Maydays are preventable. I would never say that. This is a hazardous job. And shit can go wrong even when you do everything perfectly right. But we can do a better job as an organization or fire service. And leaving those people outside, like you said, or having that fake sense of security, that little whoopee, blankie so we can feel better about ourselves while we're in the building is absolute bullshit.
Yeah. Let's talk about some specifics to deal with the Maydays. What are your thoughts about radio communications as far as some organizations want to split channels, some want to stay on the same channel? Do you think there's advantage one or the other as far as how to utilize the radio in terms of a Mayday situation?
So organizations should stick to what they're comfortable with if they've been doing it well for many, many years, right? I hate to get on here and be like, oh, they should do it this way. And some dude in Texas is like, we're fighting fire every day. And we've never, ever heard somebody, White Monster, that's my favorite, bro.
Yeah.
So.
Got to do it.
So cool. He threw me off with that. Anyhow. So communications, they should be doing what they do that's been working forever. I don't want to sound like, like the guy in the front yard, get off my damn lawn, kids. But we have historical values that we've seen. We have data information that we understand to be true. And this is it. If you immediately knee-jerk reaction, once someone strikes the Mayday, right? Switch everybody to a different channel as an incident commander, assign another incident commander or RIT division chief or captain, whatever your organization has in place, to that channel, and fireground operations all go to the other. That immediate no room for freaking change default policy gets people hurt and or killed because we're being, again, stingy with the resources. We know that number one, self-rescue, keep that guy on the channel, the Mayday firefighter. Number two, his company, keep them on the channel. Number three, the nearest company to them, keep them on the channel. And then number four, put the RIT team on the channel with them. Now, I'm not saying to keep his company, him, and the adjacent companies that want to help indefinitely on that channel, Jake. I'm saying if I'm the chief officer, and let's play this out, Mayday, 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 I copied your Mayday, all the other units are moving somewhere else, and all of a sudden, the firefighter that called the Mayday from truck one, I get truck one on the air. Truck one to command. Go ahead. Truck one, chief, we're making our way back to Rob. We know where he was. Command copy. Engine one to command. Go ahead, engine one. We were just operating by truck one. We're making our way down. They're down the hallway to the right. See if we can help. Command copy, engine one. Leave them on that channel. I'm immediately turning to the nearest person to me and saying, put engine one and truck one on a 5-minute stopwatch and let me know when it's been 5 minutes because I'm about to get busy, bro, with a bunch of other things. So at 5 minutes time, he can be like, hey, chief, it's been 5 minutes. Copy. If I haven't already, I will check on engine one. What's your progress? Where are you? Where are you near the solution? Truck one, same thing. If either one of those guys tell me, oh, we're not there yet. We're making our way. Oh, we think we got them. Oh, we're almost there. They're coming out.
Yeah.
Because these are firemen trying to be firemen and help one of their own. And they will all die in that building. Right? But if I hear we're at the firefighter, we've made contact, we're getting him packaged, we're ready to go. Guess what? They're all staying on that channel. I'm turning to the guy to my right and I'm saying, put him on another 5-minute stopwatch. And I'm playing that game over and over and over as we prepare for them to come out.
Yeah. And so that brings up the next question I have is, so a Mayday comes out. How do we maintain a trajectory towards extinguishment while this occurs, right? How do we not have the whole fireground collapse in on itself because everyone doesn't want to see their buddy Rob die, right?
Discipline. That there really isn't an answer, man. Fireground Maydays. I've been on one fireground Mayday, one true fireground Mayday my entire career that I can say was a Mayday. The other one was just resolved too fast for anyone to react. But the one that we actually had to pull him from under roofing material, right? It is a emotionally charged, chaotic. If they're in the vicinity or within visibility, it's like moth to a fire. They're all going to just gather to that light, and it's hard to keep them away because, again, this is what we do. This is what our programming is, and it becomes difficult. If they're spread out around the fireground and you have the discipline to train to not have them react, then you're better off. If you have a strong command presence and they understand the value of not being able to get there, accessibility becomes an issue. That works as well. But Jake, to be honest with you, it is very, very, very difficult. It'll become like herding ants to keep these companies on there. I'm not saying they're dropping nozzles and hose lines, shutting down water and running from the Charlie to the Alpha side. But if they're in the vicinity of the Alpha side, you best believe they're leaving one guy on that hose and he's probably losing his heel, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So is that just a thing that we have to expect and go, and like, especially on the chief officer level, to say, if we have a Mayday, we shouldn't be surprised by this behavior, which is, a degradation of normal traditional fire operations, right? We can't expect it to not go that way.
Absolutely. It should be an expected variable. Like, expect this, and this is the way we should resolve it, whether it's by assigning a chief officer, making direct contact with the companies that are assigned to that area, and talking to their company officer and making sure that Jake and Rob talk, stay on your line, stay here, stay there, keep your people away. That conversation needs to be had. That variable needs to be addressed. That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that. And I've been on freaking 20 podcasts. That is awesome.
Good. I'm happy I struck one. Yeah.
Awesome.
So when we think about this now from the command standpoint a little bit, and you touched on this a little bit earlier when you were talking about the radio comms, but so I'm an incident commander. We have a Mayday called on my fire scene. What's the perfect Rob Ramirez reaction to that? And what do you want that officer to do to hopefully elicit a correct and successful Mayday response or RIT response?
First and foremost, make it personal. Meaning, don't be freaking robotic. If I'm the incident commander on Main Street and Jake is the firefighter on engine 1, let's say Jake's transmission call sign is engine 1 Bravo. Mine is Main Street Command. At the point where Jake calls a Mayday, 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 and he's screaming into the radio for the first time in his career, where, mask is half knocked off his face and he's losing air, and I received that transmission, the first communication I have with Jake should not be Main Street Command to engine 1 Bravo, firefighter with the Mayday. Yeah. What is your lunar?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is an ineffective communication. That's the first thing I would do, Jake. Make it personal. And chief officers need to understand that. After that, every communication I have with you will be intentional. My first concern is your location, not who you are. If I already know who it is, even if I don't know who it is, firefighter with a Mayday, what's your location? If I'm working accountability and I understand that where my companies are in the building, even if they moved a little, I need to know where you are before I know who you are. That way I can start geolocating and moving my resources that I have available to your immediate area. Why? Because only in training, and I say this all the time, and people refuse to understand what I mean by it. Only in training can you get all that information out. Who, what, where, this, that, the other, the favorite color, the lunar, horoscope signs. All that shit only really works in training. If you listen to these transmissions enough, if you get out of your comfort zone, your policies and your bubble, your local jargon and colloquial behaviors, understand what is happening in the rest of the country. Mayday, 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 and then everything goes downhill. The fire gets a vote. The environment, the way it affects the down firefighter, changes transmissions. The biology of the firefighter changes. His heart rate, his ability to listen, his ability to speak, his ability to key a mic, his ability to hit an orange button changes. His biology changes. The building gets a vote. The building fails. The building reacts certain ways to the space the firefighter with the Mayday is in. The people around him fail. They start jumping on the radio and jumping out of position, cutting off his transmissions and communications. And last but not least, our technology fails. Radios key, they don't key, mics work, mics don't work, transmissions get cut off, transmissions get dumped. There's so much historical data and value showing this happening over and over and over that it is ridiculous that we still expect our members to give us who they are, where they are, what they need, what their area is. All these things are not going to get out, but they get all the time. They get out all the time in training, Rob. Yes, because we're not dealing with people, biology, technology, building, and fire. Those variables are present. We know they're there. We've identified them. Let's insert constants where the fire has given us variables so we can be successful, not so that we can be robotic. Make it personal. Find out where they are first. Start moving your people there. And then you can get into your love story about what their favorite color is and how much air they have.
Is there anything that we can do in training to get closer to that biology and that biological effect of, I know that some people talk about stress inoculation of go run the tower 10 times and then now do your drill or whatever it might be. Is there anything you found in your experience that can elicit that similar reaction to try to have people closer to that state of mind when they try to do this training?
It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult because, you work at a fire department, I work at a fire department. We can't go out and get every company on every shift and stress inoculate them and put them on, make them run 10 flights of stairs, hit a tire 27 times, do 50 up downs and then put them in gear and send them in a building because we're going to be dealing with medical issues, at training, right? Yeah. Right. Let's just be real. Let's be honest. So, listen, stress inoculation is a long-term process. If anyone studies stress inoculation as a subject matter, they understand that it's not a once a month performance. It's not a 1 day class. It's not an 8 hour class. It's not a 3 day class. This is a long-term performance. It's based on the individual. What we can do in training, simple training is, like you said, we can stress their biology. How do we stress their biology? By creating them, make them create output. They get to hit something, strike something, run something, be in gear, stairs, this, that, the other, get their heart rate up, but we're getting it up based on oxygen demand. Is their muscles creating them to breathe harder. The second they start mouth breathing and not nose breathing, you're good to go. So you get them to start mouth breathing, and then you put them in the scenario. I don't have to hit a target that's the same for everybody. Some dudes may be freaking smoke diver and awesome at their job and jacked, and they're going to be able to be nose breathing or whatnot much longer than some dude who's coming off the freaking recliner at the firehouse in the same company.
Yeah.
Right? So get them mouth breathing, put them in the scenario, but be mindful of the instructor and don't lie to yourself. What you're creating is not stress inoculation, is biological stress based on their lack of ability to, give the muscle the oxygen it needs. It's going to get them tired. It's going to make thinking harder. And it's going to make them basically want to get out of there faster and out of that gear faster and have that drill end faster. But replicating the consequences of this is a terminal event where if I go left, I survive. If I go right, cancel Christmas. There's very few things we can do in the fire service to prepare us for that in a 1 day class.
So you kind of touched on it earlier when you talked about, RIT skills just being truck skills, essentially truck skills for our own members. And so what is the interface then between victim rescue and firefighter rescue? Is it a more or less a shared skill set, or is this something that, training for one doesn't help the other? How are they similar? How are they different?
Dude, I love the question. They're both married to each other. And if you ask me my opinion, and this is just my opinion alone, firefighter rescue is way easier than Mrs. Smith rescue. Mrs. Smith in her 90 or butt naked feels like she's suction cupped to the ground and covered in oil. All right. Firefighter rescue, it doesn't matter where you find them in zero visibility, you're going to find something to grab and drag. The best way to remove a firefighter from a burning building is any way you grab them that can move them fast right now. Let's go. We'll figure this shit out outside. Or in a place of refuge. Okay, that is the truth. We get so caught up with the recipe. We're not bakers. We're grilling steaks, right? It's medium rare, right? Yeah. It's not 1 cup of honey, 2 cups of vanilla, 1 spoon of freaking flour. Like I'm not down with baking, bro. Right? So I get it. We teach, bro. We teach. Find the firefighter. I do the whole thing, assess them, the airway, the mask, the conversion, the pickoff strap, the rope strap, the drags, the legs, the crossing. How about you just get there, grab them and go? That's always plan A, and I say that on all my classes. We're going to spend the next day doing all these drags and all these packagings and all these transfills and all these bottle and mask swaps. But at the end of the day, if you leave here tomorrow morning and your partner goes down and you grab him by a leg and you drag him 20 feet out the door, and figure that shit out in the front yard, that's a home run. That's the goal, right? So the question was awesome. Mrs. Smith, in my opinion, is harder to drag than Firefighter Smith because Firefighter Smith comes with handles if he's in all his ensemble. And last but not least, Mrs. Smith is suction cupped to the ground and covered in Crisco. But that said, I have 3 or 4 drags that I use for Mrs. Smith that work for Firefighter Smith. And they're set up in 1 through 4 based on their probability for success and their ability to match the data and keep their airway below 1 foot and get their feet towards the direction of travel. That's my goal each and every time, whether it's a 1-person drag or a 2-person drag.
So if a company officer says, hey, I want to start prioritizing RIT in my company, I want to start being, Mayday-Ready, what are some things that they can do at the firehouse level that can make them more prepared?
So the first thing they can do is have intimate knowledge of an SCBA, whatever they're wearing. So you're an MSA department, a Scott department, a Draeger department, whatever air pack they're wearing, whatever cylinder they carry, they need to have intimate knowledge of it. That's part one. Your entire company must have intimate knowledge of it. How it works, where everything is, and what everything feels like when you're wearing oven mitts and zero visibility. How do you find the transfill? How do you find the shoulder straps? How do you adjust the shoulder straps? How do you turn it on? How do you turn it off? How do you remove the bottle? That's plan A. I do an entire day of training just on that. Then I would have an entire day of training in operating in zero visibility. This is a fact. I hate it when people used to put me in zero visibility all the time. I do it now because it makes sense. Understanding years later the way that the human body works, my level of comfort in any arena is based on my level of exposure to that arena. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm not going to get more dexterity with my fire mitts is because I don't operate enough in my fire mitts. I don't train enough in my fire mitts. I don't train enough in zero visibility. We were all born with the gift of sight, Jake. So since we're born with the gift of sight, every decision that we make daily, give or take about 35,000 on the average adult, starts with our eyeballs. When we put on our bunker gear and we go into Mrs. Smith's burning living room and the smoke is dropped down to the ground, we don't just become cockroaches or Helen Keller and feel our way through the house. We're not that good. We're still trying to use our eyes to make left, right decisions. What is this? What is that? And if we don't expose ourselves to zero visibility wearing oven mitts as much as possible, we're going to fail at Maydays and we're going to create more possibilities for Maydays. And we're also going to fail at self-rescue if I can't put my bunker gear on with fire mitts or my mask on. So that's what I would use, bro.
That's
those
great.
Two simple skills just to start before you even bring out a RIT pack.
Before you even bring it out, yeah. So as we kind of look to wrap up here, where can people find you? Where can they see you speak? Where can they get in touch with you? That, if they want to find more information about what you're doing, where they can find that.
Dude, I'm super accessible, social media, Instagram, Facebook. I direct messages. I write back to everybody. My email is Rob Ramirez, just like it is on the screen there, at Mayday-Mindset.com. And we're going to be all over this year. I think we're hitting like 9 states and plus Hawaii in March and Germany at the end of the year.
Oh, wow. We're
going back there. We were there last year. It was pretty awesome. Great group of guys in Germany. And next week, I'm going to West Virginia to start the year. And next month, I'm over in Pensacola for CFT with those guys.
Awesome.
So it'll be cool.
Yeah, man. Well, I super appreciate the time. I super appreciate the work you're doing. I can't wait to get to one of your classes here.
Dude, thank you. Continued success. I love what you're doing. The podcast is awesome. And these were some of the best questions I've ever received. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. That truly means a lot. Thank you very much.
You got it.